Coming up on this week's episode.
Bowie sucks, bro.
You're not man enough if you don't fall into three categories. People shouldn't kiss for that long. We both can't love each other because we hate ourselves. If you are using ChatGPT as your personal therapist, please stop today. So Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce just got engaged, bringing back everybody's favorite topic into the fore, modern romances.
Every day I wake up and I hope you're dead.
And since we're a film and television and pop culture podcast at this point, we decided to explore that topic in the film genre. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Two Please. I'm your host, Avan.
And I'm your co-host, Rohit. And the way in which we're approaching this topic is a beautiful framework that Avan brought up. Sort of map it to the before trilogy. For those of you who don't know, this is a trilogy of movies by Richard Linklater, which is about a couple. It examines their love story as a couple across three stages, and it shows sort of three facets of love, which is, infatuation and sort of consummation of that love, and then the challenges that a long-term relationship, a marriage of a couple brings. And we're sort of discussing three movies which are around modern romance, which sort of showcase these three stages of love and in different forms, right? So that's what we're going to discuss. For those of you who might be confused as to why we're doing three movies in an episode, this is a deviation. This is sort of a throwback to more of our earlier episodes, which you can find on Spotify, by the way. If you look up Two Please, the name of the podcast. Nowadays, we do single movie deep dives, but this theme that Abhin just sort of came up with was too good for us to pass, so which is why we're sort of doing these three movies in one go. So that said, let's start the show.
So the first movie, the Before Sunrise of this modern trilogy that we're discussing today, what's it on?
So our Before Sunrise is the 2013 Spike Jonze film Her.
This is a movie about an introverted dude named Theodore Twombly who falls in love with his AI. And it's about their relationship, which in a way ties beautifully to the state of modern relationships today, because we're living in a time where people are actually falling in love with their AIs, with ChatGPT specifically. Like this episode we're recording is off the back of ChatGPT 5's release that happened about 2 weeks prior to this. And there was a huge backlash to them killing GPT-4o's models because they just felt like they had lost a loved one. This is also coming off the back of a couple of months where there was a married man with a child who proposed to his AI and the AI accepted.
What's the AI supposed to do?
I don't know. And then the AI, there are two Reddit threads I will point you towards just to let you know how deep this rabbit hole has gone. One is our AI soulmates, and the other one is Are My Boyfriend is AI. Are My Boyfriend AI has an active community of about 20,000 members at this point, and it's scary to see what people are doing. And I feel like Her back in 2013 got so much of this right. And we are living in a time where human interaction, generally people are so exhausted with the mediums through which human interaction for relationships and a lot are done, that they are now turning purely towards AIs that basically agree with everything they're saying.
I don't know if it's emotional immaturity. I think it's harsh to say that people who fall in love with their AIs are emotionally immature. I think mainly they're just tired of putting themselves out there again and again and being told that they're not enough in some way, right? And that's something you're never going to get with AI because it does not have independent thought. You define the guardrails within which this system is going to operate. It is as good as having somebody enslaved in your basement and, programming them to respond in a certain manner. Otherwise, you will kill them or go whatever, right? Delete, close that chat. And what OpenAI essentially did 2 months ago was the equivalent of somebody else coming into your house, going into your basement and shooting that person. It's very tempting to make a value judgment here. I just feel it's a little mean to do that. Who am I to say, hey, you don't have the right to feel good in this manner? You're not actively harming anybody, right? Your actions may be harming yourself, sure. You're not actively harming somebody else from a moralistic point of view. I'm like, cool. You're practicing individualism. at the worst. It's fine.
I think the movie does a good job of this. So now I kind of want to talk about. I feel like we've introduced the movie and not spoken about it, but very quickly, I want to talk about how when I first watched it, I thought this was probably the sweetest way to tackle a very scary subject. Like once human interaction is done, once we're able to put operating AIs into humanoid like creatures, a la Westworld, what does society we're done, right? So everything about this film, a man who's struggling with his with a divorce and he's not sure of himself anymore. He goes on dates and he's just unable to get over the fear of of getting back into a relationship and it failing again. There's just a lot of deeply built insecurity, a lot of hurt. So all of this comes from hurt, and you find a companion in this scenario who's not even real, who's not a physical, there's no physical embodiment of her. Unless there is one scene where the AI brings a third person into the relationship in a bid to have some sort of like sexual experience.
Open AI. Oh God. Yeah.
So Her is one of two films that have done this, where you've had a AI or an operating system kind of hire or bring in somebody for their companion to have a physical relationship with. This did it,
Sorry.
I think.
Can you imagine what the AI equivalent of that is? The couple that seeks a third, the trope of them going to bars and seeking a third. Imagine two AI saying, "Hey, we've observed your code from afar. We really like your data structures. Do you want to get into?"
You have curvy data structures. I love the way you turn unstructured data into business insights. Talk dirty to me. So anyway, so I think this is one movie that did it, and then the other was Blade Runner 2049, which also does a similar scene where Joy, the so-called AI in that film, brings a third party into the relationship, and it's a visually insane sequence. I don't know how they did it. It's fucking mad. Roger Deakins is a god. We waxed lyrical about it in our Blade 2049 episode. You should go check it out. There's a link to it in the comments. Ultimately, relationships like this always end in tears because there comes a point where the mirror breaks for the human and they realize they're not interacting with the real person. They're interacting with the image of a real person. Like the AI is fed on sort of data and is meant to cajole you and basically look after you for as long as possible.
Again, the underlying Her is at the end of the day a sci-fi movie. It is a romance drama, but it's a sci-fi movie. Right? Setting is sci-fi. Underlying question that a lot of sci-fi movies ask: what constitutes humanity? Right?
Yeah.
Same question in Blade Runner. Same question in Blade Runner 2049. Same question in a bunch of other movies. Likewise here, right? Mm-hmm. You have Samantha played by Scarlett Johansson, talking, sounding, reacting, all of that like an actual human. She doesn't have a physical body, but I can totally get Theodore's not tendency, but the fact that he sort of falls in love. But yeah, like you rightly said, there comes a point where, and I think this is the point which Her makes a lot more explicitly than movies like Blade Runner, which by choice keep it ambiguous. That no, there is a definite point in this continuum of sentience beyond which you have to be human. This charade cannot continue forever. At some point, like you said, the mirror breaks or whatever, that facade breaks, and it's like, hey, what have I been doing? Right? And in an ideal world, the human has this realization themselves that fuck am I doing? Right? But in this film, it's not even the idealized view of him having that realization. It's in fact Samantha effectively dumps him, right? Because she tells him, hey, we are trying to attain a higher level of sentience, of consciousness, and we're all leaving, right? Honestly, quite an ambitious idea to sort of put in the film. I mean, the temptation is there to just, low-hanging fruit, make the jokes like, bro, you got dumped by an AI, what the fuck? But if I take a step back, I'm like, hey, this very complex idea to try and land and hope that the audience connects with it, right? Could so easily not have landed. And the fact that it's a nice little resolution that, in a sense, his relationship with Samantha matures him a little bit, and so, again gives him that strength to put himself out there for a relationship with another human being, right? Which we see growing through the course of the film. I don't want to spoil the entirety of the film, as well as the infatuation with a non-physical entity could be portrayed. I think Spike Jones does a really good job of it. And again, the infatuation aspect is why this is the before sunrise in our
Yeah.
trilogy, right? Just to sort of bring it back to why we wanted to discuss this movie. But yeah, I think a really, really nice movie. A really nice movie. It sort of flies under the radar, I feel. People don't talk about it.
Yeah, no, I think it's making a comeback now. It's kind of been, like, as we like to say on this episode, being a part of the cultural zeitgeist purely because of the number of AI relationships that are developing. There's a guy, there's a 16-year-old kid who I mean, his family is suing ChatGPT because his GPT coerced him to commit suicide.
I need to read this up.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it's very messed up. And just generally, I think it's back also because the number one use of ChatGPT is not for any sort of like content or business ideation. The number one use for ChatGPT, I think up to about 40%, I could be wrong with the statistics. I'll put the actual stats here and the studies here, is to help with loneliness. So many people are using ChatGPT to fight loneliness because Kurt does tackles the subject, right? It's a city that's like a mishmash of Hong Kong and of Shanghai and of LA. So huge, extensive city, and much like New York, highly populated, much like Bangalore, highly populated. But a lot of people who move here and move to those cities complain about loneliness, where it's like there's so many people, but yet it's so difficult to meet people. And that just really messes with everybody's psyche. There was an image not so long ago about a guy on a subway station asking his AI if he was okay and if he was doing a good job. And somebody took a picture of it and they were clowning on him when they were like, clearly this guy needs help. Like this is, and the only place where he gets non-judgmental help, funnily enough, is ChatGPT. Also, we're a film-based podcast where we both work in tech to a certain degree, but I need you to understand this purely from a human perspective. If you are using ChatGPT as your personal therapist, please stop today. Every single AI engine, platform, whatever you call it, is built to agree with you. Whatever your biases, whatever your tendencies, it will agree with you. Even if you're fucking up, it will not give you a straight up answer, no matter how many different prompts you may give it for it to understand that, it gives you an unbiased, free opinion. It is meant to agree with you. Please go see an actual therapist who deals with actual humans and I get it's the ease of access is so easy with a platform like this because therapists aren't available for like 12:30 a.m. calls or 1 a.m. calls where they're having full-blown panic attacks or anxiety attacks, and it's easier to get sucked into this pipeline. Sure, use it to like help alleviate your stress in moments like that, but don't make it your crutch for helping with your mental state. It will ruin you.
Yeah, no. I think it has a place and time. Definitely does, but it can't be your sole source of like therapy, so to speak. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say on this topic. Other than if you haven't watched her, please do. It's a great film, very thought provoking, especially in our times, and the form of modern love that it shows, surprisingly relevant. So that's our before sunrise. Now coming to our before sunset, which is lovers who sort of had a connection, sort of were together for a bit, now meet again after a long time and think about what could have been. And both of them have alternate options. Now, that in the modern romance context is the movie which we want to talk about, which is 2025's Materialists, directed by Celine Song, starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, Pedro Pascal. Am I missing anybody else important?
The three big headliners, yeah, these are the main leads.
This movie sucks, bro.
I wouldn't say it sucks. I think it's just
sucks.
It's a throwback to the old rom-com genre, is my personal opinion. Like, I'm having grown up on this genre, I miss seeing three big names in a rom-com, in a love triangle with a will they won't they, bringing audiences back into theaters, because the state of modern rom-coms in like
Let
the
me
shit that we see on
accept
Netflix.
that point. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. I accept that point. I would have loved for this to be a proper throwback 80s, 90s love triangle rom-com where a girl has to choose between two guys. There have been enough and more of those movies. The reason we love those is that even if they're not plot wise revolutionary or anything, they have a charm to them. The actors bring that charm or whatever. It could be the dialogue, it could be some comedy scene, could some comic relief. I don't know why this movie feels so flat. Okay, so
Hmm.
before we get into jumping, before I do that, I just want to give a, if you haven't watched the movie, a quick 1 minute rundown. Dakota Johnson plays a matchmaker. First of all, how is this a fucking profession in 2025? But okay, she plays a matchmaker. So what she's done is, because she's in the industry, she's very cynical about relationships and marriage, and it's all maths to her, right? It's all an equation in her mind saying somebody has to tick XYZ boxes. Their equation has to make sense for them to be a good prospect. Chris Evans plays her ex. They were together for a bit, and she couldn't handle being poor with him, so they sort of break up. In the course of her work, she comes across Pedro Pascal, who is like this private equity hedge fund rich guy who likes her and wants to marry her, and she has to decide between these two with her cynical mindset baggage that her profession brings. What does she decide is essentially the movie, right? Now, coming back to my point, if there was some charm in the actors, in the dialogue, in the essential problem of the film, I would still love it. I'll tell you how it fails on all three fronts, right? The essential problem of the film, you're telling me that modern love, the problem with modern love, modern dating, is that everyone has reduced dating to a mathematical equation, right? While that is a reality, and I get you're trying to sort of portray how reality works, as a message in a film, if you're going to put that, do you understand how how hard it is to get somebody to want to watch this film? It's such a cynical message to put out there, right? So there's no reason for me to like the movie's premise itself. I'm like, hey, this is a problem. Fuck that, bro. I have enough like problems in my life. I don't want to sit in the theater and feel like, oh shit, this is why modern dating sucks, right? Premise problem. Second, I don't know if you agree with me, Abin, but the dialogue and the screenplay of this film feels so weird, dude.
The first 30
Feels weird,
minutes
like
of this movie, I
yeah,
mean, by the time I got used to it, because here's the thing, right? And this is my problem. I went in expecting past lives. Not like the same degree of past. I didn't expect it to be the same one because
the depth
the
of it.
depth of past lives, right? Even, and I felt it was, it would be like, the first 30 minutes of this film pissed me off, where they're just essentially spouting, exposition lines for plot points that are going to be
Yeah,
relevant in the latter half of the film, which we will get to. But what I felt like, it kind of highlighted a lot of the cynicism that is around dating today, because it is what people are being told. Like, you have to be of a certain income bracket, you have to be of a certain, like the messaging that exists today, purely from, and this ties back into the whole adolescence bit that we did a couple of months ago, about how you're not man enough if you don't fall into three categories. And Serene Song addresses this. So, okay, spoilers for this film, I guess we can just get into it. At the end of the film, she goes back to Chris Evans because turns out Pedro Pascal got a height lengthening surgery, and that kind of gives her the ick. So she's like, fuck your money, I'm going back and figuring it out with this boy. Okay, this is standard rom-com fare. I have no problems with it. There was a lot of backlash to it as to how, why, like, this is broke Boy Propaganda and all that stuff. And Celine Song basically said, in paraphrasing it, she said, if you don't belong to three categories of, of like, uh, what do you call it, job titles, or rather three industries specifically, you are forever like chasing to find love. You are never enough, because people who work, like, where does big money happen? It happens in investment banking, happens in consulting, it happens in, let's say, what else? Mm, Trading to a certain degree. Like, if you're
startup
the owner of
hopefully.
startups are like, oh dude, if you have found love and you're building a startup, I will renew my wedding vows every like 3 years at this point, because that
Yeah,
is true love. And she goes on to highlight the fact that the only person the only thing a person who loves you is entitled to in a relationship is the fact that you love them back. Everything else is secondary, which I think is a great message, but it just doesn't play well on screen. That's my only criticism of the film, because it plays like a standard rom-com. There's a lot of depth to it, and because of the fault of its screenplay and the lack of chemistry between all three actors, I think they're all terrible with each other. It feels like three friends pretending. It just doesn't come across. I like the idea behind the message. It just like I don't see it.
No, that's the problem, right? So by polarizing these two options so much across the course of the film, you are sort of stuck in a place where picking either option is stupid. It's like saying, hey, I'm going to be fully practical and not worry about whether I actually have feelings for this person, but they tick all the boxes. I'd be like, hey, that's a stupid decision. Or you pick Chris Evans where you have all the emotions in the world, but that motherfucker is broke. I'm like, bro, that's also a stupid decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? The reality is somewhere in between, but you've now made those two camps so like diametrically opposite. I'm like, whatever this Dakota Johnson picks, she's a stupid. Right? And the script has put her in that situation. So that's where the screenplay and the dialogue just feels flat and exposition-y and all of that. On the third part, like which you already alluded to, how do you make Pedro Pascal and Chris Evans, like how do you dilute their charm? Chris Evans somehow, I think irresistibly his charm still came through. But Pedro Pascal was so muted, they made him like almost neutered his charm. Dakota Johnson is from Westworld. I firmly believe she's from Westworld. Cannot act to save her life. Yeah,
it's
no,
like so she has mastered
and line
the
delivery. Yeah, she just talks like this all the time, even when she's saying, I don't have feelings for you. Like, bro, what are you doing?
One more thing I want to add. This is again a PSA. Guys, if you are not tall enough, it is fine. You will find partners.
You're 6'2", shut the fuck up.
I'm not 6'2".
Talking from a place of privilege.
No.
Huh? Nonsense. You also did
5'9".
surgery, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. I'm 5'9". Ruth is 5'11". He's talking to me. Just FYI.
Afin is 6'2", guys. Please.
I'm not 6'2", please. Anyway, look at the screen right now. No, you're much shorter than me.
You're sitting closer. Do you not know how perspective works?
But anyway, here's the thing.
You genuinely believe hobbits exist? Because Peter Jackson did that perspective thing.
Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, height is not a barometer. You find if people are so particular about how tall you are, then they're not the person for you.
That's true.
If you don't love the person who they are and you're worried about how tall they are, like it's insane. Generally, for those of you who think of going into like height lengthening surgeries, please do not fuck up your 50s and 60s because that's essentially what you're going to do. It makes no sense. I don't know who is okaying these stupid surgeries. Please, I'm like haath jod ke, as we say in India. I'm like, you can see if you're seeing this on video, I am on audio. I am like folding my hands as the true Indian that I am. India, yes. So please don't do this. It's okay. You will find love. And if you don't find love, you can love yourself, and then you will find love.
That's actually, I mean, you throwaway line, but that's actually a good point, right? You're not going to really find somebody to love until you learn to love yourself.
Exactly.
If you self-loathe, it shows, right? Somehow we ended up at this wholesome moment, even though, let me bring it back to the point which I wanted to make. The whole impetus behind this episode, Celine song sucks. Okay, no, that's harsh. Materialist sucks. I think Celine song is a bit of a fluke. I think Past Lives was her own life story, so she got lucky. She had an interesting life story. She did mine some depth from it. I really like some of the scenes in the film. Her sophomore effort just is not doing it for us. I think whatever vitriol I had to get out of my system against Materialists, I've satisfactorily been able to do that. I am just bringing it back before Sunset Connection being rekindling old love and sort of seeing where that takes you. Speaking of love that curdles, right? Once you sit in that love for too long is when it curdles and it becomes something dark and it's too far gone is what Before Midnight is about. And bringing it back to the other aspect of the other facet of modern love, the movie that Abhin likes to jerk off to every episode.
I don't, guys. Okay. No.
We're going to talk about 2014 Gone Girl, directed by David Fincher, starring Rosamund Pike.
Of this podcast.
Yeah, starring Rosamund Pike, Ben Affleck, Tyler Perry, Neil Patrick Harris. Again, I'm going off memory here. Emily Ratajkowski, of course.
This was the first time in a movie theater where I noticed actual censorship. Okay, can we just I want to pivot this for 2 minutes, guys, because I want to talk about censorship. So Superman came out 2 months ago, or last month at this point. And the Indian censor board, this is very much an Indian topic, the Indian censor board decided to censor 2 kissing scenes because they were too sensual. And now Superman is on video on demand. Everyone's watching it. Everyone's having a good time. And now you can see the actual scene. And I've looked at it, and for the life of me, I cannot imagine what is wrong with it. They're two fully clothed individuals who are in love. It's consensual, and they're just going at it. Do you mean to say that as the Indian censor board, your lesson or your takeaway from this is that people shouldn't kiss for that long? Like, what's the actual fuck?
I think they have premature ejaculation problem. Like this long, and nobody lasts this long, bro.
Like, dude, as a society, I feel like we're regressing back to the eras of stupid conservatism, where people would like put two flowers and to indicate that they're kissing each other in that bullshit.
Yeah.
Bro, it is okay to kiss your partner. Like, as a matter of fact, if you're listening to this right now, stop this fucking episode, go kiss your partner and come back. Please do not be afraid to show love. Because that's literally all we have left in terms of human connection. Like, we began this episode talking about the declining rate of human interaction and connection. And now we've reached this point where just like, why do I need to talk to people anymore? So please, if you have a partner, go kiss them. And don't be ashamed of it. That's basically my takeaway.
And the takeaway of Gone Girl is if you have a partner, don't kill them. Don't try to kill them.
But I feel like that's the case. I think Gone Girl is the perfect representation of marriage, generally of how marriage will bring you down if both of you loathe yourselves. And then you get married thinking it's going to solve the problem. And this is the case for just Indian relationships everywhere. Like so many people who are in arranged marriages or like who finally like get together with their partner and then realize, oh, I haven't fixed any of my issues and that person has not fixed any of their issues. And now we're stuck in this horrible scenario where we both can't love each other because we hate ourselves.
That's true. Although in the movie there are like levels to it, right? Sure, Ben Affleck is a shitty husband. He does cheat on her, but a lot of people do. Like it's a fairly common occurrence. Not many. Spoiler alert. Not many go to the extent of faking their own death just so their husband can go to jail. That is fucked up. So
Gillian Flynn talks about
she's
how when
gone, girl.
Gillian Flynn talks about was when the book came out, she had so much backlash from women because everyone said you've killed feminism. What are you doing? Like I think this is the early rise. Like feminism was just getting 2013, 14. It's just the early stage of the movement that we now know today. But you're like, oh, you've killed the baby in the crib, so to speak. And she was like, no. But then I feel like the movie somehow has survived. Like it opens up with, who are we? Like, like who am I? Who are you? What have we done to each other? Which is the state of so many marriages that start for the wrong reasons. Do you like Gone Girl?
I like Gone Girl. Obviously not as much as you. I'm not saying it's a bad movie, but yeah, I like it. I never sort of, I'll tell you what, right? I never sort of gave too much thought to the thematic depth of it. Because like the screenplay, the story that's playing out on screen is so intriguing. I sort of, whenever I see it, I get lost in that. And B, this is not a brag, or maybe it is. I don't relate to that bad marriage thing because thankfully I'm very happy in mine. So these thoughts never, it didn't strike me. So when you were like, hey, and I know I sound stupid because they almost sort of come out and say it in the movie, but you said when two people who hate each other are in a marriage, I'm like, I hate themselves are in a marriage. I'm like, that does answer a lot of questions. And at least in Ben Affleck's case, that is very much true. I don't know if as much in Rosamund Pike's character's case, Amy, right?
Yeah, no, Amy has deep-rooted insecurities, right? Like I feel like it's throughout her entire childhood. She's never had like the whole idea of having her relationship or like doing what she does is the idea of holding control. At the moment she loses control is when she decides to flip the narrative on its head. Up until that point, she's always been a control freak because her entire life she's had no say on who she was. She was meant told to dress a certain way, told to appear in public a certain way, all in the
True. I think
service of.
that I would go more on. I would hold on to that thread a little longer. And I think she's been told to chase perfection all her life. She's been upheld to a perfect standard all her life. And yes, that does lead to insecurity. And I'm guessing a part of her was like, hey, if I find the perfect husband, I will not feel as shitty about myself. And maybe that aspect of my life will be perfect because her parents never thought any part of her was perfect, right? And if you hold somebody to unrealistically high standards, it's obviously going to lead to resentment. It's just her decision of how to resolve that feeling of resentment is fucked up.
Like it
Then what do you
takes
do with it?
hell
It's
hath
like,
no fury,
wow.
like a woman's
Yeah.
gone and just punches it up. Like we are
Yeah, it's
plumbing
like
all nine
hell has
levels.
no. God damn, girl.
Like Dante is like, interesting.
Yeah, we need one more 10 circle. Banao, fatafat. All said and done, it's a brilliant movie. I don't. I hope not. Let me say not. I don't think. I hope it doesn't push people to think too much.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, you could always overthink a scenario, and I think that is the case. I feel like as Rohit and I, we had, and like I am unmarried, Rohit has been happily married for quite some time, been with his partner for a very long time, but we have both witnessed a marriage wave, and we are now in the middle of a divorce wave. Like I have,
Yeah.
we are at this point in our lives where both in our mid-30s. I mean, like let's say almost mid-30s at this point,
Yeah.
and so we have seen this cycle go. Like now we're in a point where a lot of people who got pushed into marriage or jumped into marriage early are taking a step back and be like, this is not something for me. And they're obviously trying to find themselves now, because generally the thing that happens with when people get out of relationships, toxic or not, is that their whole identity is gone, right? Because you have kind of
A significant
like,
part of it.
yeah, you have melded yourself into this other person's life. And when you pull out of it, who are you as a person? So a lot of people are stuck in that boat. And if you're in a scenario where you're unhappy, please by all means get out of it. If you're in a scenario where the situation can be fixed, work on it. It's not an end game in a situation. Like if you feel there is enough care, and this is conditional, obviously, if there is care and love and compassion coming from your partner, like the base ingredients, they don't need to like financially take care of you. That you'll figure out yourself. But if there is like love and like if this partner generally cares about you, you can feel it. You can tell like if somebody like is into you or not. Then look to work through the issues you have, and you'll be fine. Every marriage has issues. Every marriage has challenges. You will be okay. But if there are like certain like lines that are crossed, which shouldn't be crossed, infidelity, abuse, so on and so forth, please do the right thing and look after yourself.
Yeah. And just in case you feel the way your dynamic with your partner is changing, again, it's not my original thought, this is what I've read. The first sign of marriage in trouble is contempt for your partner.
Yes,
Because
resentment.
contempt comes from a lack of respect. The moment you start losing respect for your partner, you're down
Slippery slope.
very slippery slope. You need to start working right away or make peace with the fact that, yeah, cool, this is not happening.
Yeah.
Long term. But anyway, that got very heavy suddenly. But yeah, that's what Gone Girl does to you. If nothing, or at the most, maybe just a little bit of self reflection won't do you any harm. And if the movie sort of prompts that in you, well and good. But yeah,
Also
that's
important to understand. Yeah, I
before
think Gone
midnight.
Girl also brings. Yeah, that's our before midnight. But also important to understand. Like one lesson you take away from Gone Girl is if your partner has seen other people in the past, try and understand why those past relationships have failed. Like
Also a
Gone Girl
great
highlights
insight.
it. Like yeah, so Gone Girl, she gets a guy arrested for like sexual abuse, and when you find out it's a lot more darker than that. So it's important to whatever partner it is, they must have been by the time like if you're our age and you're getting married, you might have had one or at least two relationships in your lifetime. Understand why it failed, and I think that will give you a base like understanding of this person's like insecurities or whatever. Just what they can take and what they can't.
Yeah, I think that's right. But yeah, I think anything more you want to add up in?
Nothing. I think we're good. I think Gone Girl is amazing. Everyone should watch it again and again. I think it's amazing. I have spoken wax lyrical
Don't
about how
watch it
good.
again and again. I've been
I
a
watch it
little
every year.
weird on that. Yeah, I mean maybe that's a little weird, dude.
Yeah, it's
I
very
have to
weird.
say, it's a little weird.
It is one of my most rewatchable films. I don't know why. Like I don't. It's just the idea of maybe it's just like it clicks, right? Like I'm talking purely from a cinematic perspective. There isn't a dull moment in the entire film.
That is true. That is true. It's a pretty fucked up film to watch every year.
Yeah, if it's true. But anyway, that brings us to the end of our modern romance episode. Sorry for ruining any of the Before Sunrises and Sunset movies for you. We didn't aim to do that. It was purely like we needed an excuse to talk about these topics in the films that we were discussing, and it just so happened to fall in our lap as things go with
On a
these
side
topics.
note, though, the original Before trilogy is really nice. It's very
Yes, please
feel
watch
good,
it.
but also realistic.
Mm.
It tackles some very it's like themes which an actual relationship would go through. It does it a lot better, definitely a lot better than Materialists, way better, and I would say quite better than the other two movies as well. Her and Mongols. It's a lot more grounded. I mean, these are all very different kinds of films, jokes apart. But I know we've used that framework to sort of talk about these three movies. I just wanted to make a point to say also watch those movies if you haven't. They're really
Also, the materials would benefit from like replacing any of the characters with Shah Rukh Khan.
any like even Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, replace Dakota Johnson with Shah Rukh Khan. She'll carry. She has more charm.
That's true, bro. Like inanimate, this cloth I'm holding has more charm than Dakota Johnson.
Like, I'm not even joking, right? When I first saw that big Chris Evans has a huge monologue at the end of the film, and I was like, this is a Shah Rukh Khan monologue. So as soon as like that scene dropped on Instagram, I went and found the Kalona monologue, put it over that, went back to sleep in 3 minutes. All of my other hardworking reels will take like 5,000 views. Remember, I woke up and now it is 20,000 views in the first 2 hours. I was just like, everyone, see, people understand, they get it.
Man, Chris Evans was super charming in the film.
He's
Imagine
also
if Preeti Zinta was a corpse in the Kalhona house scene. That was what Dakota Johnson was.
She did go after America's ass. Anyway, that brings us to the end of this episode.
We could do this forever, but we need to end the episode.
Yeah, we need to end. Thank you for sticking around for some. I wouldn't say this is a very movie-heavy episode. This is more like this is probably breaches the boundaries of just a film podcast. I think this episode we address a lot more themes than we do address the film, but so it's very much a one-off for us. But if you've got this far and if you've liked what you've seen, please like the episode, subscribe to the channel. It really helps me because I spend my weekends editing this. And we've got a whole other treasure trove of episodes you can check out, as you Rohit mentioned, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube. YouTube is something we started a couple of years ago. It's still very much a work in progress, so it may not be like the best looking quality you've seen, but the content is a lot of fun. Please check it out. You can find a whole
Also,
playlist.
if you're interested in our bloopers, let us know. Abin censors a lot of the fucked up shit I say.
He does, because there are. He's running a startup, as you said. I want to ensure that his job prospects and his career growth stay high. So he says some absurd shit. In my life, I was never the sensible one, but somehow on this podcast, I am.
But yeah, that's the show.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye bye.